Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Track B at HR Week 2022. It's a great privilege that I can introduce you to our speaker today. His name is Lazar Bulatović. He's the first and only blind public speaking coach, and he's here today to share a totally different perspective on talent management, attraction, and everything that we have to know in order to truly approach disabled talent as a premium talent. Lazare, thank you very much for participating in HR Week 2022, and the virtual stage is yours.
How would you feel if the HR would give you one of the following responses? This position is not available for you. We think that you are very qualified for this job, but we can't adjust you to the workplace. Sorry, we need someone who can see well. And how would you feel if your child or a family member had such experience? Now, remember my question, only one of the following responses. Look, I got each of them. Dear HR professionals, I know your job requires a strong balance between allowing companies to generate profit from one side and making people feel good from another. And I know that most of you do not earn as much as you want. Well, who does today? But let's try to change the way people with disabilities are considered by employers, because their work can help companies grow tremendously and show you the new, fascinating world of possibilities you could never dream of. When I completed my university, I was just like any other fresh graduate, young, dashing, job ready. The problem was, well, I just had to find that job being totally blind. And although I could imagine that HR people do have some stereotypes about it, honestly, I did not expect they are deeply rooted in their heads so strongly. Now, if you didn't listen to me so far, please start, because what I'm going to say is very important. I don't know for how many jobs I applied, but the result was always the same. If I would tell my disability in the application form, I would receive 0 invitations for interview. So number of invitations to interview was 0. But if I would apply to the very similar position in a different company with the same CV and without telling about my disability, I would get invited to an interview almost every time. Why? I'll let you think about it and try to find the answer for yourself. The interview process would always be the same, again and again. The talk would go pretty smoothly until we reach the very end. A recruiter would be usually a kind lady, and then they would ask something like, sorry, we really don't want to be rude or anything like that, but can you tell how could you complete your job, your tasks? Oh, sure, no worries. So I have just like any other computer, so I can use a normal PC machine. However, additionally, I have installed a special screen reader. This is a speech software, and this software converts text into speech. So instead of looking at the screen, I'm listening to the computer. And all of this allows me to do more than 80 or 90% of things. Yes, I can use only keyboard. And then when I show that in practice, they just can't believe it. And they say something like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know something like this exists. Great, we'll get back to you shortly. But in most cases, they rarely would. I would either receive a call with the vague explanation or an automated rejection email. All of that made me feel discouraging. And my idea was that finding a job is impossible for me. I started doubting about myself. And yes, I'm not the only case with this story. There are many cases I heard, plus documented examples, where the interviewer would ask a person, so, how can you eat? How can you go to the toilet since you're blind? How humiliating it is. Imagine yourself sitting in front of the interviewer who is asking you, so how can you use toilet? Here are 5 ways HR can, do to start employing more people with disabilities. So 5 steps to start employing more people with disabilities and achieve better inclusion and allow companies to grow. First, start recognizing people with disabilities as a source of talents rather than problems. Be aware that 80 or 90% of things are totally doable if they are given the right and appropriate job environment. Now, you, and every single HR person following me at the moment have a huge power to uplift hundreds, thousands of thousands, if not millions of people with disabilities. Power to help them gain independence, allow them to live a life worthy of a human, and power to help them find an employment. I'm sure we can do it together. Second, attend a training of employing people with disabilities. Make yourself familiar with this topic until you finally understand as much as you can and learn how to communicate sensitive things such as job, employment, during the job interviews. Many of these people are actually discouraged to find a job, to look for a job, and this is why they constantly need your support. Third, open 1 or more positions, and for starting, reserve them exclusively for people with disabilities. Inform colleagues about this so they know what to expect. Fourth, connect with relevant organizations representing people with disabilities. Ideally, they should be focused on employment because this will allow you access to the huge database of talent pool. And this is very important as many of those people may not use standard communication channels. If you know someone who has a huge network in this community, ask for a recommendation. Join the relevant groups and connect on social media. Once you are sure that your company is pretty much visible within this community, you are ready to publish a job ad. Most HR people might think that this job ad is the same, just like any other. Indeed, this is not true. So, along with the job description and standard things, please note and explicitly encourage people with disabilities to apply. That's important. Also, do note that all necessary adjustments will be made, such as environment for accessible wheelchair stations or magnifiers, screen software for the blind. Be as specific as possible here, but also note that all necessary arrangements and adaptations will be discussed with the new employee. Make this application process as accessible as possible. So either allow applying via email or create an easy application form. This is very important for the blind candidates as they use that aforementioned speech software. Also, many people with disabilities have many questions when applying for a job. Unfortunately, they might be refrained to ask because they don't want to feel disqualified in front at advanced. So also try to assign a readily usable person who people with disabilities can reach out easily. 5, once you have successfully onboarded a few people with disabilities, you can use this as your long-term employer branding strategy. Their testimonials and videos showing they're thriving at your company will allow a top-tier talent to you, will attract top-tier talent, and allow company to grow faster than expected, than usual. Although all of this may sound like a lot of work and accessibility testing, trust me, it's not. Many blind people are well-versed with Screenreader and navigating the web, so just keep things simple. Now, I don't want to say that employing more people with disabilities is only up to HR. There are many cases where those people are not proactive when looking for a job. I know many of them who completed their education and stopped. They just stopped there. They sit at home doing nothing. And there is nothing for them except disability. They live in and for disability. And when I ask, so why you don't work? They say something like, well, I'm disabled. No one wants to hire me, blah, 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 blah. This approach, actually, due to this approach, they start lacking social skills. There are cases where a candidate would just stop talking after they are asked a question by the interviewer. Unfortunately, HR can't do so much about it because this is up to social services, family support, educational institutions, local organizations, and so on. But let's see, what are some benefits of employing people with disabilities? Innovating work approach that increases productivity. Most of those people had to find different ways to do standard things like navigating around, learning, some other activities that most people just take for granted. For example, I know a lot of keyboard shortcuts in my mind. I have them. And this is why I can do many things faster than my sighted friends or colleagues. And for the operations that sighted people they do in a few clicks, I can make by pressing only one right keyboard shortcut. Discipline and persistency. People with disabilities are very persistent. And although sometimes their CVs do not show it because of the lack of opportunities given, they have strong work ethic and habits. And this is why colleagues can expect that work will be done way better than they thought. And also, they hoped. So yeah, that's why. So all of this increases the profit of the company. Now, a research conducted by American Association of People with Disabilities and Accenture showed the following results. An average salary in companies that employ people with disabilities is 28% higher in comparison with companies without those people. So, HR, if you want to start earning more, do something about this. Then, the retention rate is increased by 90% in companies with people with disabilities, again, in comparison with those which do not have this community in mind. Why do I always mention HR? Because all of those changes actually in companies starts in the heads, in the minds of HR people. And this is why your role is so crucial here. There are many successful people with disabilities. Steve Hawking was paralyzed for 30 years in his life, but he used a specially designed speech synthesizer to talk. Andrea Bocelli is a partially blind, but he sold more than 75 million of records. Nick Vujicic is born without limbs, but he is very successful in fighting for the rights of people with disabilities. Now, inclusion is a popular topic nowadays. And when the most employers are asked, should we have more women in our workplaces, in our companies? Yes. More LGBT people? Yes. More ethnic or national minorities? Yes. More people with disabilities? Oh, yeah. I mean, yes. They really need our help. Let's help them. This is a wrong model. This is not inclusion at all. This is a charitable model. People with disabilities should be treated as adults because they are adults. And they should, employment strategy, employment people with disabilities should be a part of every serious employment strategy. And it's not because people with disabilities should be gifted a job. No, not at all. It is because their work allows companies to grow faster and to generate profit much more than companies without this community. They will also enrich your colleagues in that company. They will add personal enrichment to them, so they will be able to multiply that knowledge and transfer that knowledge to their families and children, making them also open towards this social group. Now, do you remember my story from the beginning? Well, after some time, I was able to find a job. I started working in the central office of the Serbia Post, International Project Associate. That was my position. Sounds good? Well, not really. That job was totally boring, and every single day was the same. I wanted to do something more interactive, so I started freelancing, and I got some PR projects that I did. And I remember there was a client asking me to write a speech and coach him on how to deliver this. I never did that before, but I decided to accept the challenge. And for some reason, everything went well, but for some reason, I felt so happy about it. And then another client came with the same request, and another. So that was my aha moment when I found my true mission, helping people overcome their public speaking fear and achieve their professional goals with public speaking, be that on video, podcasts, meetings. I also help people make money by speaking at events. And then I decided to quit my job. And everyone was shocked. Wow, are you crazy? What you're doing? Everyone insisted I keep my job because it is not easy to find a new one when you're blind. But I just wanted to do what I really love and what I really enjoy doing. So there was no discussion about it. And I quit. And what about body language? Well, for that, I found a sighted assistant. So when people working with us, they work with two coaches. Me, who is helping them with their speech, voice, presentations, etc., and a nonverbal communications coach. Shortly, the first client arrived, and another, and another. And now I'm having a growing business, and I couldn't be happier. Unfortunately, most people with disabilities are not that lucky, or they do not have that entrepreneurial spirit. So this is why they need your support. So if you haven't, please start employing more people with disabilities to experience exponential growth. And if you are already doing this, please continue in order to grow even more, because disabled talent is a premium talent. Now, I have a question for you. What are your questions?
Hi, and thank you very much for sharing your experience. We have a lot of questions that came via chat, and we also have a lot of positive feedback.
Thank
So
you.
congrats on that. There's a few questions that I'd like to have you answer, and the first one came from the audience, and it's: do you believe that people with disabilities have a higher engagement rate once at work, or no difference at all? Any personal story on this?
Definitely. Many researchers show that. And also, this is one of the benefits of hiring people with disabilities, because, probably they are quite sure, maybe I'm crazy because I quit it, but, like most of them are sure, or, think that it's very difficult for them to find a new role. So this is also a reason for which they are motivated to stay longer. But, be aware that you should never misuse this circumstance.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for answering this. Also, another question that came from the audience is if you know any data or metrics on how many companies are ready to actually employ people with disabilities, specifically blind people.
I don't know the exact data, but I can tell you that blind people are the most educated people, the rate within the entire scope of people with disabilities. But the unemployment rate among blind, although they are the most educated, is the highest one. And this is because many people are not aware of that technical achievements that are made for the last 30 years or so that allow blind people to work, to be more independent than ever before.
Lazar, thank you very much for providing an answer on this. And I'm very happy that you actually accepted the idea to participate here, because now when I see the positive feedback that we got and your presentation, it's a great privilege to be able to host you here. You got a lot of comments like you're a true hero, and thank you for sharing your experience with us. And I truly think this was such an inspirational case study for each and every HR professional here listening to your story.
Yeah, I do hope so. And yeah, please add me on LinkedIn. I'd like to connect with people. So let's chat. If you're ready, why not?
Amazing. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating in this case study. If you want to reach out to Lazar, he's available at LinkedIn or at Lazar Bulatović. And thank you very much for participating, and see you very soon. Bye.
See you. Bye. Bye.